Before every soul meets eternity, there are moments that decide everything. They don't come with warnings or thunder from the sky. They arrive softly, in choices, in silence, in pain. These are the 4 tests from God, and most people never recognize them until it's too late. Heaven watches quietly as life unfolds below. The streets, the laughter, the hurried prayers whispered at midnight. Every heartbeat carries eternity's rhythm, yet few realize that within this rhythm lie the tests that measure the soul. The first test is the test of waiting. There comes a season when heaven seems silent. You pray, but the sky does not answer. You hope, but nothing moves. Days stretch into years. You begin to wonder, has God forgotten me? But silence is not absence. Waiting is the furnace where faith is refined. Abraham waited decades for a promise he could not yet hold. Joseph sat in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Even Christ waited 30 years before his first miracle. The question is not how long will you wait, but who will you become while you do? Because the truth is, waiting reveals what worship hides. It exposes whether we love God or only his gifts. Many fail here because impatience whispers that delay means denial. But few understand, God's silence is never punishment, it's preparation. And maybe that is our own hidden battle, not to rush the seasons God has not yet opened. Then comes the test of obscurity. Not every saint is called to be seen. Some are called to be hidden. We live in a world that worships visibility. Followers, recognition, applause. But God often trains his greatest warriors in secret. Moses was hidden in the desert. David was left with the sheep. Obscurity is the divine classroom where humility and strength are forged together. It's in the shadows that we learn who we truly are when no one is watching. But few endure that silence without bitterness. They confuse being unseen with being unwanted. Yet heaven knows your name, and every hidden act of faith echoes louder in eternity than the greatest stage. Sometimes, being overlooked is God's mercy, protecting you from pride that could destroy your purpose. But few understood what comes next. The third test is the test of loss. Every soul at some point must face the tearing away. A person, a dream, a season that ends. Loss is where the heart's idols are revealed. We discover what we truly worship not when we receive, but when something is taken. Job tore his robe and fell to the ground. Yet even in his anguish he whispered, "The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." That line wasn't resignation. It was revelation. Job realized that faith doesn't end at the edge of pain. It begins there. When everything falls apart, will you still believe that God is good? When prayers seem unanswered, will you still trust the unseen? Most people fail this test because loss feels like abandonment. But heaven's truth is different. Sometimes, God must empty your hands so he can fill them again. And maybe, the wound you carry is not punishment, but pruning. Then comes the hardest of all, the test of love. Not romantic love, but divine love. The command that asks us to forgive when it hurts, to bless those who wound us, to love our enemies. This is where the cross meets the heart. Because real love costs something. It's not a feeling, it's a surrender. When Jesus hung between heaven and earth, bleeding for a world that cursed him, he passed the final test. Not through power, but mercy. "Father, forgive them," he said, and heaven shook. You see, God doesn't test to destroy, he tests to reveal. The fire does not consume gold. It refines it. Each test, waiting, obscurity, loss, and love, is not a punishment, but a purification. Every trial whispers, "Will you trust me still?" Some people spend their lives running from the tests, always chasing comfort, never surrendering. But the wise understand that every test is an invitation to transformation. Because after every breaking, there is a becoming. When you feel forgotten, remember, heaven is silent before miracles. When you feel hidden, remember, God is shaping your strength in the shadows. When you lose, remember, it's only the pruning before fruit. When you love and are hurt, remember, that's where you resemble Christ most. And maybe, before we die, that's what God is asking. Not did you succeed, but did you trust? Not were you known by many, but were you faithful when no one saw? Every soul will face these 4 divine tests: in waiting, in obscurity, in loss, and in love. The question is not if they'll come, but whether you'll recognize them when they do. Because one day the waiting will end. The hidden will be revealed. The lost will be restored. And love will remain, eternal, unbroken, victorious. Maybe the truest test of all is to keep loving God when life gives you every reason not to.